So today I have Nickie Kilkenny with me, who is the most loveliest woman that I've met out on the entrepreneurship circuit here in the Northeast. And when I heard a little bit about her story with menopause and her health kind of journey as well, and some of the things that she does to take care of herself, she was someone that I thought would be really good to have a chat with on the podcast to explore more about perimenopause and menopause this month. So welcome, Nickie. It's lovely to have you.
Hi, thanks for having me. And what a lovely introduction.
Yeah, you're so welcome. So, come on then, tell us a little bit about how perimenopause started for you. Did you know what was happening? How did it feel? And, what did you do kind of next when you realised what was going on with how you felt?
It was not fun. It came from nowhere. I was
Right.
43, so I could feel I was different. It was really bizarre. I felt different. I thought I smelled different, which is a
Oh,
weird thing to say. But I knew that things about me were changing. And whilst I'm aware of the menopause, I didn't realise that's what was happening to me. I thought I was too young. It happened to older ladies.
mm,
Um, the temperature issue was massive for me. It wasn't just night sweats. It was all day, every day, all night, every night. It, I was 1 minute I'd be fine, the next drenched. So it's really uncomfortable, not feeling nice, weight gain. I think every symptom, I pretty much got it.
right. And I can imagine then that changed quite a bit in how you felt about yourself, and just how you go about your normal day to day as well.
Yeah, the fatigue and everything was just massive. I had
Mm,
no energy. I've got a busy job. I've got a busy life. I like to be active. I'd done a triathlon a few years before, was feeling pretty good. And then suddenly I had nothing. And self-confidence goes. You have like almost like a level of paranoia where I just felt uncomfortable around people. My confidence plummeted, and that whole not feeling comfortable in how I was dressed all the time. I didn't dare take my jacket off in case people could see that I was sweating, which is awful enough being that hot without having to sit with the jacket on.
yeah.
So if
Do you know
anybody
that's
unplugged my
really
fan at work, hell on.
heaven help them. Yeah. And that's really interesting and something that I want to highlight to people as well, because it's not just the way the physical or mental symptoms you might experience make you feeling inside with what's going on. Like you say, you're hot, it's uncomfortable. But it's then how that plays out in how you go about your life because of feelings. You use the word paranoia. Some women describe very severe anxiety, which they've never had before, confidence, your self belief, self worth. So it's impacting more than just the fact that you've got discomfort or pain or lack of sleep, but it's then really, coming out in lots of different ways that can then, as we know, affect a lot of women with their work, and actually they end up leaving work or they have to go part time because they just believe that they're not capable of having that job anymore, don't they?
Yeah, it is that. I remember being invited to an event. My job's very social. I'm really lucky. And I got invited to go to a race night. And it was like an afternoon thing. And I was trying to get ready. And I had this voice in my head that was almost saying, help me, because I was so hot.
Mm.
I'd just got myself ready. And then my hair was like a frizzy mess. My dress was, I just wanted to get it off and be back in the shower and not go out and not be around people. And it was a really tough time. One
Mm.
of my worst moments
So,
was that I
mhm.
forgot how to drive.
Oh, and literally as you were in the car, or as
Yeah,
yeah.
I was with my daughter. We'd gone out for a coffee. She knew I was struggling. We talked about it. Um, and I was having a flush. I was overwhelmed with anxiety, which is something
Mm.
I'd never suffered from. And I just suddenly realised I couldn't park my car. I was trying to reverse into a space and didn't know what to do.
And how did that feel? I can imagine it was scary.
It's really scary, very
Yeah.
upsetting. I burst into tears. My daughter
Mm.
was just like, jump out, Mum, I'll park the car. It's okay.
Mm.
And then she was like, what is
Mm.
happening? And I was like, I don't know. I feel like I'm dying. I feel like I've got dementia. There's something wrong with me. And she was like,
Yeah.
it's the menopause. I was like, it can't be. By this point, I think I was about 46.
Mm. And so had you gone all of that time just trying to get on with things without seeking any medical advice or support?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
shortly after that I decided to go and see a doctor because I thought, yeah,
Hmm.
this isn't good. Can't park my car. This is bad. I must have dementia. It can't be the menopause. And I did seek help from a doctor. It wasn't a great experience. I didn't get a lot of help. I didn't get a lot of support. I got the wear cotton, dress in linen,
Oh,
take oil of
wow.
evening primrose. Okay.
Uh, And was that your GP?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I,
Mm.
I just,
Unfortunately, yeah, there's a lot of that, isn't there? A lot of, yeah, a lot of medical staff, through no fault of their own, just haven't been trained. And the more research I've done into this, I've listened to so many podcasts with Dr. Louise Newson, who's a big, menopause specialist and advocate here in the UK. And she's interviewed many, many other types of doctors, and they all just say during their medical doctor training, which we know takes many years, they don't talk about the menopause at all. And yet the menopause affects 50% of the population, and 100% of that 50% are going to go through the menopause. And it's just incredible, isn't it, to think, that they've been also kind of encouraged to tell women like us who are really struggling that there isn't anything you can do, that it's just part of life, and that they've been trained to not prescribe HRT, which thankfully is starting to change now.
yeah,
But yeah, and feeling like you've got dementia, I know there are women who've gone as far as to think they've got some kind of psychosis because they literally feel like they don't know what's going on when they forget things, like you say, like things that we've done our whole life. That I had an episode a couple of weeks ago where I'd put a pan on with some potatoes to part boil. I was going to do some roast potatoes. So it was on the bank holiday Monday. And I knew as I put them on, I said, I wonder if I should put the timer on because I might forget, because I am struggling with forgetfulness. And then I just came upstairs and just started doing other things. And I know you can forget odd things, but this was something quite obvious. I was cooking, and I suddenly got this smell, and I raced downstairs, and the pan had obviously lost all of its water.
oh,
Everything was burned. The hob was burned. I just got really upset, and my partner was like, "It's fine, you just forgot." But I couldn't describe to him that it wasn't. That it was scary. I said to him, I'm actually scared because I gave no thought whatsoever. Just wasn't in my head like it had ever happened. It was just the most bizarre thing. And so it can then lead you to think that there's something else more drastically wrong with you, isn't it? And it's scary.
yeah,
So,
I definitely
what,
felt that
go
way.
on.
I thought there'd got to be something seriously. This can't just be menopause.
And like, had you heard much from other people about it to help you, dispel some of those worries and to put it into perspective that it was very normal because of what was going on with the changes in your hormones?
No, not really.
Mm.
I mean, my mum's amazing, but she had a hysterectomy when she was very young, so she'd obviously gone
Right.
through it very young. And it wasn't really something we talked about. It wasn't a conversation that I don't know if she was comfortable with. I think I've certainly been a lot more open with my daughter, so she knows what's
Yeah.
coming.
And that's the thing, wasn't it? I think our generation, we were taught to dread it. That was all we ever heard, wasn't it? Was, we got the whole puberty talk at school, which was a bit funny when you're only, 10, 11, and you're sitting there in the class hearing about what's coming. But then you're also told, oh, and then you'll go through kind of the same thing again, but much worse when you're older, and then that'll be it. That's the decline into old age. And I know certainly for me, there wasn't really any education outside of that ever through school. It was a joke. Definitely in work, I heard a lot about it from older women I worked with. But again, it was done with a bit of tongue in cheek, like, oh, I'm having me hot flush again, and oh, that's it, I'm getting old.
It's
I've
almost
forgotten the
like
saying.
it's
That's a bit,
funny,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it
It's like bury
really
me now
isn't.
sort of thing. Exactly. Yeah. So what happened when you had visited your doctor, didn't get any support? Was there a next step that you took, or did you just think, well, they're the expert, there's nothing that can be done?
I did feel like that. I think when that generation have brought up to respect them, they're like doctors
Yeah.
and policemen. You do what they tell you. So many visits, not really any progress. I asked for HRT. They said no.
Hmm.
Um, I got to a point where I just changed GPs. I
Right.
had a work meeting with a very lovely lady who I know, who said to me, like, what is happening? You're a wreck. I was like, I'm having a hot flush. I'm having the worst day. There were tears. She got a face cloth. She put it on the back of my neck. She calmed me down. We had a chat. She said, you've got to fix this. You've got to
Mm.
do your research. Talk to your friends. What are they taking? What are they doing? Get back to your GP. So I did that. They gave me antidepressant, which I took them because I was so desperate by that point and so unhappy. So I started them, and all they made me do was not care. I felt
Mm.
nothing. And when there was something major happening and people would ask me about it, I'd be just like, "Oh, don't care." I was not a version of me that people knew. So I met somebody again through work, amazing job, who was a herbalist. And I was chatting to him about the menopause. And he told me about these antidepressants that they put me on and how bad they actually are, and that they're just an inhibitor and that they stop you feeling. So he was like, get off them, get back there, get your HRT. So that's what I did. I power
Mm.
dressed, which is ridiculous that we have to do. But I went in a suit, I went with my makeup on, I kept my shit together. I wrote things down and I handed it
Yeah.
to the doctor and said, I can't articulate how bad I feel. Read that. And I walked out with a prescription.
Mm.
Within a week, I felt like a different person.
Wow. And I've heard that so much, and that's something I know those who are leading the change with menopause are really advocating for is this awareness of all of the different things that you can feel and experience, and how a lot of medical staff are still leaning towards antidepressants, and in some cases it's very scary because they push you so hard onto them, and then when they don't work, something stronger again, often combined with other things. They treat a lot of the symptoms in isolation, so people end up on rafts of different medication for things, like the gut problems, joint pain, maybe headaches, then the way they feel, anxiety or depression or just low mood and lack of sleep. And so they're on this whole cocktail of drugs when basically it's the hormones, or in a lot of cases it's all because of the hormone changes, and at no point has that come up as a discussion and a potential reason and root cause. So it's really common, and obviously what we've seen over definitely the last couple of years menopause has gone more mainstream with a lot of celebrities talking about it and opening up the conversation, which is amazing, is, us being armed with knowledge, because you going in with that information is the same as what I've heard and spoke to other women about. And that's been their biggest bit of advice is go, track your symptoms, monitor them. There's lots of different ways, easy ways as well to do that with some apps or even a bit of paper, and you go in. But like you mentioned before, the generation that we haven't been brought up to do that. We've been brought up to respect hierarchy and to think they're the expert. And especially in some surgeries where you've maybe got that older male doctor who's very, bureaucratic in his approach, and you worry that there's someone I spoke to and she was like, I just can't say anything to him. I just end up sitting there and nodding and going away and crying because it's not what I want. But she daren't speak up because she respects his authority that much.
Yeah, it's
So good on
awful
you for
that.
power dressing and taking control. And then,
Put your red lippy on.
yeah. And did they give you any other advice apart from obviously giving you what you knew you needed, which was HRT? Did they talk to you about what else was going on, and maybe changing anything in your lifestyle or checking in with what you were doing in your lifestyle and habits?
There wasn't, to be fair, but from the research I'd been doing, because when the lady I know spoke to me, and she was like, knowledge is power. Do your research. So doing that sort of made me think, okay, I've stopped exercising. I don't run anymore. I don't do anything. I've stopped going to the gym, which were things that I really loved. And here I was sat at home just feeling fat and uncomfortable and unhappy. So I was like, right, I'm going back. And off I
Yeah.
went. And I took myself back to the gym. And it's been a bit stop-start, I have to say, because there are times the fatigue just gets the better of me. And I've had some other things going on. But I'm currently back in a good routine, 4 or 5 times a week, getting into the gym, lifting heavy things, feeling really powerful, and feeling for the first time in a long time a lot more like me.
Oh, amazing. And do you really think that working out has helped you to get back to that place?
Oh, without a doubt, it's saved me from a physical and mental point of view. I no longer exercise thinking it's about being smaller. Yeah, you get to my age, you've got to stop worrying about that at some point. I don't think I'm ever going to be that girl again. I'm never going to be that size 8, and that's okay. But I'm a happier, healthy version of me, which is far more important. Is that making sense?
Oh God, yeah. And you've just given me goosebumps because you're so right. And the self-acceptance bit is something that I'm going to really focus on in the menopause program that I'm offering, because for most of us, whether it's the physical external appearance that changes because of menopause or not, there is a change that is irreversible, whether you take HRT or not. That's what I want to get across is you can take HRT and it can help you to feel normal again and reduce and even get rid of many of the physical and mental symptoms. And it can also help improve and protect you from future illnesses and diseases and things. But there are changes that have happened that are irreversible, that you need to accept. And I think that's the most difficult bit, isn't it? Which I think when you look back, certainly to our mothers and grandmothers, like the pressure wasn't on them in that way because life was very different, wasn't it? With work, with families, with I guess just expectations and awareness. And now we live such a fast-paced life. We expect that we should be the same, but we have changed. And I love how we talk about you're going to go through the menopause, but you don't come out the other side because there isn't an end when you have stopped ovulating and your periods have stopped and you're postmenopausal. You're that for the rest of your life, aren't you? So for you to say you've accepted that now you are the way you are. You're still Nickie, you're still how you feel and have your same beliefs and values about your life and what you want. But the way you look has changed. And I think a lot of women get really stuck, and I understand why, because you want to be how you were. And so there's a big piece to work. And was it hard to get to that point of acceptance?
It was, yeah, because we are conditioned now, aren't we? Aesthetics are everything, and very media driven. And you look at everybody else and think, why are they like that? And I'm not. And
Yeah.
I've got friends going through it, and one she's sailed through it, hasn't put on a pound. She's still like this, but she's had other things that have impacted us. So yeah, it's been a hard road to get to this
Mm.
point, but I'm
Hmm.
55 now, and I think I'm more comfortable in my own skin than I've ever been. And
Which is amazing.
I am heavier than I want to be, but the way I look at it and the chat I had with my trainer last week was I'm training for my old lady body, not a summer body. Bone
Yes.
health, good skin, making sure I'm still mobile.
Hmm.
I don't want to be chucking a chair when I'm 65. I want to climb a mountain.
Oh, I'm literally this. I'm going to use you as the poster. This is going to be the clip of, like exact because if you're not watching it and you are just listening, like Nickie looks amazing. I was blown away when you hadn't even said your age, but when you talked about being a gran, I was like, oh my God, how old were you when you had your child, and how old was your child when she had her child? And then when you said 55, I was like, oh, I mean, she looks amazing. And I watch you deadlifting on your videos on Instagram. And again, I hope you don't mind me sharing, one of the conversations we had when I was hosting a workshop you were in was about your struggle with accepting the difference in how you work out now to how you used to work out, and including that how much you get to the gym, what you do, how you feel. And we talked about that, and you've just come such a long way. And I think that was only earlier this year, do you know, where you're now like, yeah, I know I can't do the same, but I work bloody hard when I'm there. I love it. I'm into it again. I've accepted that I did triathlons before, and so I trained lots of times a week and trained in a very different way. But now this is how life is, and what you said about your bones, skin, the future mobility, that's everything that I'm about. So yeah, thank you for saying all
Oh,
of
you're
that, because that
welcome.
it is, and not just with exercise, but all of those lifestyle changes with nutrition, stress, sleep, your mindset, the way you've talked about having to accept yourself and know how worthy you are, even though you aren't what you were 10 years or 15 years ago, and so on. Like, they're the things that we need to work on. Otherwise, we're just going to end up waiting to die, basically, aren't we? Like,
Yeah,
and
put
that's not what
life
we're here for.
in your life. I
Hmm.
have a friend who lost
Yeah,
her
I like that.
husband a few years ago, and this is her thing. Keep life in your
Mm.
life. And I feel that's where we are now. And going back to the
Yeah.
gym sort of earlier this year when we had that chat around sorry, something really weird happened there. But it was when we first chatted, and I said, right, I'm getting in 3 times a week. And I'm going to make sure that happens, set that as my habit. And then I've just built on that. It's that
Hmm.
find that one thing you love. And if you only do it once a week, then that's okay. I think be
Yeah.
kinder to yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's about that one size fits all approach, isn't it? And mentality that we have. Like you touched on, we've been conditioned to think that health is about perfection. And I've talked about that on a podcast just recently, that it deters you from doing anything because you think you have to do everything, and you think you have to look a certain way when you do everything. But to your point, doing what works for you and fitting that in, because we know our lives are busy, so that's one challenge. But then accepting that once is better than nonce. We need to do things, any things that help us to feel like we are in control of our lives, and we're living a life that is one we're going to get to the end and look back and go, yeah, that was bloody good. Like, yeah, I made the most of that, rather than get to the end and go, oh God, I wish I hadn't drank a bottle of wine every night for 20 years and,
Tempting.
lived on I mean, God, yeah, I'm sure if there were no consequences, we would all, probably like that. But yeah, there's so many things that we often just skip over because of how busy our lives are, and we just think, well, this is the way it is. And so I love how yeah, it's been a difficult journey going through perimenopause to get to the point where you really got the right support with HRT to then be in a place to kind of springboard, and improve your lifestyle. But, you're at a place where you feel great. You're an advocate certainly for taking control and working out. And I know you feel a lot better because of that. So that's amazing.
Jill, my saviour. And
Yeah.
I still think it's pretty cool that I can deadlift 100 kilos and I'm 55.
I mean, that's more than I can deadlift. It's marvelous. And actually, so on that, that's something which a lot of women, especially those who've never exercised, just think, well, what's the point now? There's no point. I'm not going to go to the gym and lift weights, or I'm not going to exercise. But now is a better time. It's just the time to start, isn't it? There's never a better time than now's the way I want to say it, is because when you are aging, regardless whether you're male or female, you're going to lose muscle mass, you're going to lose bone density. But as women, we are at a much greater risk. Like 1 in 2 women get osteoporosis, and like you said, we all want to be able to move when we're older. We all want to put ourselves on the toilet and get ourselves, to the shops or to see the people we love and so on. So, strength training is really important. And if you've never done it before, don't think that you can't ever do it, because you can start at any age. Do you follow a lady on Instagram called Train with Joan?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, she's amazing. She lives in Mexico, and she's I think she might be American, and she's 76 maybe, and she started her fitness journey I think in her late 60s. And she is incredible. She lifts like nothing else. She's like a woman of 30 basically. She was very unhealthy. I can't remember all of the conditions she had, but I think she was really struggling with, metabolic syndromes, so different conditions like a heart, a blood pressure, or being very overweight. She might have even been diabetic. She's basically reversed everything, and she
Amazing.
goes on the beach and pushes these massive tires and lifts big weights, and she's just like looks amazing. And so she, started from complete scratch at a very, older age, and now has just changed her lifestyle and the way she feels. So
I think we've got to
yeah, the strength
bust
training's
those myths that it's not
yeah.
going to make you bulky. You're not going to have thighs like a bloke.
Mm.
It's just do what's good for you. You don't have to use
Yeah.
heavy weight. If you can squat, you can do that body weight.
Body weight, exactly. Yeah. You don't even
Everybody
have to do weight.
starts
Mhm.
somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, it's been great chatting, Nikki. I just want to ask kind of if somebody is where you've been and they are struggling, what would be that biggest bit of advice you would give them to try to help them to feel better and, take control of menopause?
Get educated. It's the best piece of
Mm.
advice I got.
Hmm.
Talk to your friends who are going through it. Find out what they're taking. Do your research. March into that doctor and tell them what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, that theme has certainly come through, and in the other conversations I've been having outside of the podcast, that's the same thing. It's incredible. The people who've got themselves to a place where they feel better because they've taken control. It's all about education, being informed, so that you can then make an informed decision rather than being on the receiving end of something that might not be the right decision for you because of what was still, waiting to evolve with the medical
That's a
practices and so on.
really important point, Nicola,
Hmm.
because they tell you the risks of HRT and the risks of breast cancer,
Hmm.
very serious things to consider, but that's your choice. That's not their
Yeah.
choice. And they were quite happy for me to be on the pill forever
Mm.
when I was taking contraception, which has a much higher risk than HRT. So don't
Oh,
believe them.
yeah.
Do your
Yeah.
research.
And hopefully we will share some of that on the podcast as well with someone who's qualified to talk about it, because clearly I'm not. But yeah, there's so much that I've learned about this, and with the risks, they are very, very low, if not minimal, especially when it's the gel and the patches in terms of HRT. That evidence which was released over 20 years ago wasn't correct. There's so much, that they've since found, and even knew at the time and were told not to put it out because it wasn't accurate in the way that they were portraying it to be anyway. And yeah, the contraceptive pills, totally lab developed. It's totally, non-body identical like HRT now is. So yeah, and they don't know the long-term consequences of taking that, but they're still willing to put it on. And I've heard a lot of women, very strangely, when they've gone for perimenopause, being told that they need to go on the pill or they need to go on the coil, which has some, hormonal release in it, which is they go and they're like, I don't need this. I don't want to go on the pill at 48-year-old. That's not why I've come to get help. So yeah, that's a really good point as
Well,
well.
I'm looking forward to talking to someone who's more qualified to talk about this
Yeah.
stuff. Testosterone. I want to know more about that because I think for the
Yes.
next
Well,
stop for me.
yeah, and definitely, and that's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because there's still a big reluctance, and it's still, I know, I don't know the terminology, but um it isn't possible, I think, to prescribe it normally in the UK. Yet in Australia it is for women for menopause. You can get it here, definitely get it, but I don't think you can get it on the NHS unless it's for certain reasons. But yeah, there's lots of research still needed on that. But again, there's lots of evidence coming out of how much women have of testosterone, because that wasn't even known until very recently. It was all estrogen and progesterone, but not testosterone. That was a man's hormone, but it's not. We have that as women, and we very much need that to be able to think, to perform, to have energy, to exercise as well, in that sense. So yeah, I feel like that's something that I might need a little bit of, the symptoms that I've been struggling with. So we'll definitely stay connected, and hopefully we can chat about that with someone who knows a little bit more about it.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you again, Nicki. It's been lovely. I've really enjoyed chatting, and well, I'm sure your story's going to help a lot of people and just give some inspiration, especially when they do check you out, if they're listening, and they see what you look like for 55 and how much you can lift. And then it's like, yeah, I know I need to take better care of myself too.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. Thanks for
Oh,
having
you're
me.
welcome. You're very welcome.